Hey adventurers, so today is going to be another book review. This is for a book that I read back in May now, so I'm just, a bit behind, about a month behind on reviews, and I kind of like that in some ways. I prefer to be caught up on my filming and just have them be released a little bit later, but I'm not. So anyways, this is a book review for Sitka by Louis L'Amour. This is a book that I've actually had on my TBR for a very, very long time. I've had it sitting beside my bed for about a year now. Saying, okay, I'm going to read this book as soon as I can. I'm going to read this book real soon here. And I never ended up getting to it until now, or until May or whatever it was. A big part of why I read this book, one, because I like Louis L'Amour, but probably the biggest reason is because it's titled Sitka, which is the name of a city in Alaska. And so knowing that this book was going to at least have something to do with Alaska, I was super excited to read it and see how Louis L'Amour, who I know is a great author and a great storyteller, how he would take Alaska and incorporate it into his story. So, I've read several other Louis L'Amour books, and it never fails to surprise me just how good they are. The same goes for Sitka. The level of detail and historical accuracy is incredible to see, all the while telling a great story. Oftentimes the characters in L'Amour's books tend to be the type of people that are perfect and always make the right choices, so kind of this paladin-like character. And there's nothing really wrong with that necessarily, but some people don't love it. I'm informing you that that's the case with L'Amour, a lot of L'Amour's characters, not all of them, but that is the case with a lot of them. I actually like that in most characters. I like you to be able to see and understand their motivations a lot better, or a lot very clearly, I guess I should say. So I don't have any issue with that, and I quite like the main character in this book. So the main character of this book, Jean Labarge, is that type of character in many respects. But like I mentioned, I'm the type of reader that doesn't mind that at all. I read this mostly because it is about a city in Alaska, like I mentioned, so I, being an Alaskan, wanted to see what Louis L'Amour could do with that setting. Again, as I already mentioned, I like L'Amour as a storyteller, but that at this time wasn't the main reason why I wanted to read this book. We don't spend quite as much time in Alaska as I would have liked, but the story was still extremely good. The time we do spend in Alaska is amazing. Most of it's about sailing through the Panhandle and up the Marine Highway, or the Alaska Marine Highway and everything like that, and seeing how he goes through that, and just like, well, this based on the reports that Jean Labarge has gotten from this person and from this native group and all these different things, and people who have already gone there several times and come back, and he's compiled all these reports and everything. Based on all that information, this is the path that he thinks he's going to take, and stuff like that. It's really cool to see because it's accurate. He captures Alaska very, very well, and the beauty and majesty described very accurate. I haven't actually been to Sitka. My mom lived in Sitka for a while, but I have been to the coast, Alaska coast, obviously. There's a lot of it, but the southern coast and the Panhandle and everything, it's a very different. There's islands everywhere. It's not the open ocean. It's islands pretty much everywhere. And so his description of the way that the islands look and the way that they feel, and I can't remember all the terminology that he uses off the top of my head, but it describes it so perfectly and so accurately that I could envision in my mind, based on what I had seen already, that what he was writing was accurate, and that's really cool to me. And so the picture that he was painting in my mind was just reinforced by what I already know. And so that's really cool to me. The writing is very immersive. You can picture the setting with ease. Again, it's been a bit since I wrote this review down, so the things that I'm talking about, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but the writing is very immersive. You can picture the setting with ease. At the same time, though, it is not overly flowery or descriptive. It is precise and concise, but never feels rushed. That is a very special skill, and one that most writers don't have. I love Tolkien's descriptions, and I think that he does great, but it is a very different type of description than L'Amour does. Tolkien likes to go into detail about what he's seeing, what the characters are seeing, and I love that. It fills the world out so nicely and makes you feel like you're in that world. L'Amour does it in a different way, so you still feel like you're in that world and you're seeing what the characters are seeing, but it's not as much description. It's kind of, and we'll get to this in just a second, but the way he describes it in this sentence that I'll mention at the end here is really why Lemore's writing works so well for me. I don't usually read quotes from books, but this one just really resonated with me, but also describes the motivation behind the entire story as well as the main character. So that quote is, I don't remember exactly where it's at. I was smart and wrote it down so that I don't have to try and go searching through the book, but it's, Alaska was an exotic name like Kashgar, Samarkand, and Baghdad, but different, stronger, stranger. It was wild, untamed, lonely, or so it sounded to him. In that sentence, it encapsulates the entire feeling of Alaska. When I read it, I was like, that's Alaska to a T. That's exactly what it's like. And modern day Alaska is very different from our fantasy images of what Alaska is like. Even to me as an Alaskan who lives here, I have this image that's portrayed through like Hollywood and stuff like that, where this is what Alaska is like, and that's both true and not true at all for modern day Alaska. But this is set in it's actually before Alaska was a state. I believe it's roughly about 1865-ish, something right around there, because it leads us up to the time of the Alaska purchase from Russia. And so it's right around 1865. Alaska was bought in 1867. And so just is a very different world at that point, but it's still so accurate because there's so much of Alaska that is unchanged. It's inaccessible to society, basically. You can hike through it, go on trips that take you through the land, and especially with things like snow machines now, you can get to places where you couldn't get before. But it's still so inaccessible and inhospitable in many ways, and it's beautiful. And seeing how Lemore accomplishes that feeling while telling the story is really cool to me. And that's way more than I wrote down on my review, but I'm kind of glad because I wanted to go a little bit more into my thoughts and feelings on this book as I was doing it, rather than just reading what I had written for this one, because it's a very special book for me, not only because I love Westerns and I love Lemore, but because it's about Alaska. And so like I mentioned, we don't spend as much time in Alaska as I'd like, but the time we do spend there for me, it's a treat to see Alaska handled so well. So thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday. We have our social medias linked in the description down below. Please like and comment and subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know if you've read any books set in Alaska and what you thought of them. I'd love to read more. I'm slowly compiling a list of books that I feel accurately portray Alaska, but I have to read more of them. So if you've got great recommendations, please let me know. I will see you guys again soon. Stay warm.